hold. Let's bring in our international correspondent, Diana Magnay, who is in Jerusalem for us. Good afternoon to you, Diana. Scenes of jubilation at the release of those three out of the six hostages that we just saw being handed over to the Red Cross a short while ago, not just amongst the family and relatives of those three, but also amongst Palestinian civilians.
Yes, lots of cheers and waves and joy, it seems, from Palestinian civilians who I think also want to see this ceasefire hold. They want to see a permanent ceasefire. They want an end to the war and the horrific suffering that the Palestinian population has undergone for the past 16 months as a result of October the 7th. The horrors perpetrated by Hamas and then Israel's response. But some amazing scenes today. One of the hostages, you're seeing Omer Shem Tov there, 21 when he was taken from the Nova Music Festival. But just on the side of the screen, we missed it in that vision. But yes, there you can see, I think that is Elia Cohen kissing the head of his Hamas captor. And waving and cheering, you know, that this is very unexpected to see that kind of reaction, that kind of warmth. But these three obviously absolutely overjoyed that their ordeal, more than 500 days they were in captivity, waving clearly to their loved ones back home. They know that these images will be on Israeli television and that their loved ones will be watching, but perhaps also to the huge crowds that are assembled there. And there you see the family of Omer Shem Tov reacting to the first images of him as he was brought out of the Hamas convoy. Tears, you know, jubilation. Literally, we saw scenes where they were jumping for joy, as you would imagine to see a young man who has been in captivity for so long, taken when he was just 21 years old. His mother, Shelley Shem Tov, has been very active in campaigning for his release. I don't know if that was her at the bottom of the screen there, or perhaps that's her there. But she has been very active. Yeah, just delight and rejoicing amongst family members to see him. And we've already had two other hostages released this morning. So it was three in this transfer in the refugee camp of Nuseirat in the middle of the Gaza Strip. And earlier, Tal Shoham and Avera Mengitsu were handed over to to the Red Cross and then over to Israeli forces from Rafah in the south of the Gaza Strip. And we understand from the IDF that Tal Shoham is currently making his way on an Israeli Air Force helicopter with members of his family to the hospital, where he'll be reunited with other members of his family and receive medical treatment. And that is Tal Shoham on the screen there. A ceremony in Rafah, which was actually certainly not quite the sort of didn't have the same spirit as what we've just seen in Nuseirat. There was no smiles or waves from Tal, and no thanks to his captors, an altogether more somber and difficult handover, I feel. But yes, the second ceremony of the other three, Elia Cohen, Omer Shem Tov and Omer Venkat, who were due to be released today, a very, an altogether more jubilant affair. There you can see Omer Shem Tov on the right waving to the crowds, them handed certificates. This is something that Hamas seems to delight in, giving them a sort of certificate of transfer or a certificate of captivity. They are normally told to issue some kind of address, although we haven't seen that. And on the left, kisses for his captors, an extraordinary moment, an extraordinary scene. Hamas holding up their hands. And I think one feature of this particular ceremony here at Nuseirat has been the Palestinian flag hoisted, the Palestinian national anthem played, and a message from Hamas a few hours ago really trying to talk up Palestinian unity. And I think that is a difficulty ahead of phase 2 of these negotiations. You know, for Israel, it is extremely important that Hamas, who committed the horror of October the 7th, are reduced, that they are eliminated, that they have no political or military power. Hamas is trying to emphasize both with these images and through its statements that they and the public are united. You know, I think that is an open question. I imagine that the Palestinian public in Gaza only want peace, and that they probably feel considerable resentment at what Hamas brought upon them on October the 7th, Sam.
And Diana, in exchange for more than 600 Palestinian prisoners, Hamas was to release 6 Israeli hostages. It's being reported now that the 6th, Hisham al-Sayed, is going to be handed over in Gaza out of respect for his family in a private and without a ceremony.
Exactly, and that is because Hisham al-Sayed, who was taken into Hamas captivity in 2015 when he voluntarily crossed the border, is a Bedouin Israeli, so Arab-Israeli nationality, and that is reportedly why, in respect to Palestinian nationhood, they are making that a private handover ceremony in, we believe, according to Arab media reports, that will take place in Gaza City, and we know from the IDF that he will also be handed over to the Red Cross, but not necessarily in a public affair. And in later on, after these 3 are returned to Israel, we expect to see, and already there are live images outside the Ofer prison and other detention facilities where the first of the 602 prisoners due to be released as part of this deal. And you can see the images there of one of the detention facilities housing some of the prisoners who are due to be released. They will begin to make their way mostly towards Gaza. 445 Palestinian prisoners who were detained after October the 7th will be returned to Gaza. That is where the majority of the prisoners in these various weeks of exchanges have returned to. But others who are significant figures in the Palestinian political movement who have committed terror acts on Israeli soil, who have been convicted of life sentences, some of them for killing Israelis. Some of them will be released, also 50 who are serving life sentences, and many of them will be deported from Israel because of concerns over their significance and of them being a security threat if they remain on Israeli soil. But let me just read something out to you that our sister network NBC News has confirmed, and that is from the Hamas brigades. Hisham al-Sayed, the 36-year-old, will be handed over in Gaza out of respect for his family and the Palestinians of 1948. He'll be handed over privately and without a ceremony, as I just said. So he will be the 6th to be released as part of this final transfer of living hostages in phase 1 of this ceasefire deal, Sam.